Hey, Jimmy, how long have we known each other? I was trying to think when we first met.
You were a chief driving instructor.
Oh my
Because when
God.
I went through driver's school, I got a letter that you sent out to the club about how it went and all that jazz. And I saved
Really?
that with this was 94. So
94.
I've been racing over 30 years. And you were
I know the
even
feeling.
earlier than that, right? When did you
I
start?
started in 88.
We go back a
We
long
go
time.
back a long way, and with a lot of stuff.
That's right.
You and I have
Been involved in
mainly
the,
because you're involved with so much stuff and know so many people. And
that's the New Yorker, I guess.
is that what it is?
I think so.
Or the Greek?
Maybe a little of both.
Because Jimmy knows everybody in the car community in Denver, I think.
A lot of
finally
people.
stumped him the other day with a name. He said, I don't know him. I was surprised, but because you know everybody.
I think partly because of the Matthews family being involved with the Matthews.
Sure. And you were involved
And then
with
putting on
Nostalgia.
events. And Bob and I were part of the Vintage Motorsports Council, which is an umbrella organization that meets in the various states and discusses what's good for racing and how we can make it better.
Right,
And that was
right.
always a great learning experience.
The Vintage Motorsports Council serves a real purpose. And for those who don't know, the Vintage Motorsports Council is a trade organization. And there are 30-some separate and different, emphasize different, vintage racing organizations across North America and Canada. But there's 30 different kind of philosophies on how to race, 30 different groups of clientele, 30 different types of cars accepted, and a person who wants to go vintage racing can race year-round virtually, because there are always races down in Florida and Arizona during the winter, our winter. It's a pretty amazing thing.
Well,
vintage
and the
racing.
clubs recognize the licenses from each of the other clubs.
Right.
So that's
Licenses
why
and
it's
cars.
like having a passport to all the different countries in Europe. You have a racing passport to all the different clubs across the country.
That's part of the beauty. If we can put in a plug now for vintage racing. How come you decided to go vintage racing, Jimmy?
You know, I was always a car guy. Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, we used to identify the back of a 63 Impala by how many taillights it had and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But I knew nothing about the racing in Colorado, and our anniversary, my wife and I, fell on Labor Day weekend. So we just left our son, who drives that car. He's a racer now too. He's 40. And we left Nick with Grandma, and we went up to Steamboat.
Oh, yeah.
And back in the day, Steamboat had the vintage car races through the streets right at the base of Mount Warner.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about it. And
it was hard to attend Steamboat and not come away cranked up.
Yeah, that event drew, 10,000 fans?
Oh no, I think over the weekend, 35,000 people would go through the paddock.
We never had that kind of an audience.
Every one of them were going, golly, you mean I could do this?
Yeah, exactly my words.
At that point in time, I suspect RMVR, 30% of our members were the result of the Steamboat races, which lasted for 15 years. Was it? Yeah. 15 years we had that annual street race up in Steamboat. It's just a totally serendipitous thing that it was supposed to be a one-year event, you know. And they said, well, that went pretty well. So they did it a second year, and then it became institutionalized. And mercifully, we were able to have that Steamboat street race weekend for 15 consecutive years.
The third year of spectating, we went up 2 years after the first and watched, and I looked at my wife and I said, I got to do this. And she's the smart one in the family.
She said,
well, she's the breadwinner. I'm the bread loser. She said, can we afford this? We have horses. I said, oh yeah, I'll do all the work myself, which is kind of a half truth. I do some of it myself.
Yeah. Well,
and when it's above my pay grade, I hire it out to either friends like Bob, who's going to help me with my transaxle now or later, or use some other folks in the club that know what they're doing. I was going to
ask you how you got interested in vintage racing, but you beat me to the punch, basically, the Steamboat.
Yep.
And your first car to race with the RMVR?
66 BMW. It was a 2000 CS, which was the two-door coupe.
Yeah.
It had the 2-liter motor, same as the 2002s, but it was the stretched out, in my view, prettier version.
Yeah.
The Beastie Boys won't like that, but that's what I call the Beamer group.
Right.
Those boxy cars. I had this sleek, cool, but it was 400 pounds heavier, and they hadn't developed the 6 yet. So eventually it got a 2800 put in later years, and then bored out to the 3.0, and that car became a racing legend, the 3.0 CSL.
Right.
My car wasn't that, but it was cool. I raced that for 10 years. Last race was the Denver Grand Prix.
Oh, you got to
We
do
had
the
a
support race.
group.
Yeah. RMVR was invited to have a support grid for it was then Champ Cars during those tumultuous years, but Champ Cars did a downtown race around Ball Arena.
Yep.
And RMVR for 2 years in a row, I think, got to do a support grid.
With about 30 production cars, all
Yeah.
all classes, from small bore, like what I ran the 4-cylinder BMW, and there
Right.
were Corvettes and Mustangs, and it was quite an event.
That was interesting because they had some other support grids there, Formula Renault or some darn thing. And the stands would empty out when the Indy guys weren't on track and the support race was going on. The stands would empty out until the vintage support grid came up and the stands would fill up again, which was kind of a nice tribute to the whole concept of vintage
I
racing.
remember a security person telling me that in kind of amazement, your cars are more popular than the Indy cars. And I said, well, that's because people can relate to a 66 Mustang Shelby,
Yeah.
or some of the British cars and marks that
Yeah.
we had in the Italian. Everybody has a story. My uncle had one. My dad had one in college.
Not
all
many
that.
people have an Indy car in their garage.
No. So they're relatable. And that's
Wow.
kind of what drives people to race these cars.
Right. That and what somebody described as a social club where some racing breaks out periodically. That is the camaraderie aspect of vintage racing as opposed to other venues.
I agree. And I tell people it's a family sport, and they look at me
Right.
like, really? And I said, yeah, my 40-year-old son wants to spend the weekend with me.
Right.
That's a plus.
Yeah.
And we have a great couple of father and daughter teams, 207 and 702, driving the Super Sevens. Janet and her dad, Roy.
And now the son-in-law.
Yeah.
So that's a whole family deal.
Yeah, it is a family sport. And my wife never really got into it because she has, as I mentioned, her horses are her deal.
She had other habits.
Yeah, bad habits. She supported us all these years, and always wanted to see us race.
I was fortunate from a family standpoint. My wife started racing 22 years ago and had never done anything like that, but got involved and became an avid racer, and so money spending on racing didn't cause any friction. In fact, I joke about it. I could buy her a set of new tires for the race car for Christmas, and I'm good.
Well, Debbie and I have an agreement. She doesn't add up the cost of the animals, and I don't add up the cost of the race car.
Yeah,
we don't want to know.
Yeah. Well, you've raced with RMVR, and you ran and raced with Nostalgia Racing for a number of years. Are there any tracks and you got Nostalgia? You go to Miller Motorsports Park when it was brand new.
That was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
We were the first vintage club to run at Miller,
which was designed as a F1 quality circuit.
It was $100 million facility at that time, and I think they've spent more since then. But we've never been on it. The garages were like almost Formula One level. I think it was one step below a Formula One level facility.
That was quite
the price was Formula One too.
Yeah, I'll bet. Were there any circuits around the country you'd really like to race?
When I retired from my business, I wanted to do Road America, since I had been there many times with the Matthews family, sometimes crews, sometimes just company for Harry Matthews, who raced Can-Am cars, greatest McLaren collection in North America he had. And I always wanted to do it, although at that point I had the Sprite, which is not really a
Road America
4-mile track, but I found the tallest Avon tires I could get, and tall gear ratio in the diff. And
did you get on the track?
Oh yeah,
I
finished. I took the checkered flag. It was it's such a wonderful facility. Road America is probably my favorite track. I've been to COTA, but not to race. We saw the first 2 years of the F1 race there. A whole bunch of us, we had 10 RVs, and a bunch of us from the club. And that's another thing I'll say about the Vintage Racing Club is the friends that I've made over the years. Really lifelong friends. 1 minute you're dicing with the guy, and then the next minute something broke, and that same guy is, well, besides the drinking part,
Yeah.
that same guy, like, what do you need to get back out on the track? You know, I might have the part you need. And that's universal in sport. It's
Right,
pretty
right.
awesome.
And pretty unique to vintage racing. There are some other venues where that certainly takes place, but not to the extent we do within the vintage community.
Mhm.
Jump right in to get a guy's car fixed so he can make the next session kind of deal.
I like to race Coda because it looks like an awesome track. I did get out on the track in Miller, even though I was putting on the event.
Mm-hmm.
I got to race a Miata out there. We did a drive-in movie on the track.
The what?
We did a drive-in movie on the big Jumbotron. At that evening, we watched Grand Prix on a big Jumbo. Everybody got in their cars and drove on the track, and yeah, it was pretty cool. When you pay a lot of money for a facility, you get to do what you
Might
want.
as well use it. Huh?
Yeah.
Make the best of it. Well, of course, Miller track still exists, but under a completely different ownership and usage kind of a deal. But my original question was, there any tracks you haven't been on that you would like to?
Yeah, I
You
see.
Coda.
And
Laguna?
I was there to spectate, and that would be, yeah, wouldn't mind doing that.
Yeah, and I've been privileged to race on a number of circuits. The beauty of not saying, oh, I've notched my belt now, I've raced at Laguna Seca, I've raced at Rotemare, I've raced whatever. The beauty of doing that is then you can watch races on TV and with a completely different perspective of what it's like. You know, having been on the track, you can watch the in-car videos or any of the videos of big races there and have a totally different appreciation for what's going on.
That's true. And
and you can't do it unless you've been on the track.
Yep.
You just can't. My favorite example of that is Mid-Ohio. How many times I watched races at Mid-Ohio, and it's just a blur of whatever. Got to go on it once, and now I can watch a TV race at Mid-Ohio, understand exactly what's going on. And
also seeing where you're at on track and knowing where you are.
Yeah.
As opposed to, from a spectator's point or driver's point of view. Prior to the Road America event, my son brings over his Xbox, and he created my car, the Sprite, and he said I should practice. And I'm not much of a video game person. Yeah. My son is. I said, okay, I'll take your advice. And I practiced. And the amazing thing was, what I didn't realize I was learning was where I was at on the track. And that was the most useful thing.
Whether to turn right or left.
Well, yeah. And,
basics.
It's a carousel. The next, I know what's coming next. And it was so accurate. And, obviously, the trainers and simulators they have now are so advanced.
By the way, there's a little advanced publicity for Race Against Kids Cancer, which is coming up later in September. There's going to be a trailer there with some sim stuff, and people can go in for a donation, small donation.
Isn't that why we're here about the rack race?
We're here to promote the race. So people watching this video come out for the race out at High Plains Raceway, and there's going to be a trailer set up with some pretty fancy simulation stuff in it, and they can get their.
I didn't know that. That sounds awesome. That's
really
new.
We just finalized it in the last week or so.
Awesome.
So that'll be another nice added feature for people and a reason to come out and spectate on the weekend, because they can indulge themselves in some simulation, which I've never done. I've never done any sim racing.
I just said Xbox. That's my.
Well, good enough.
You want to call it simulation?
Well, I watched a track on a YouTube race once. Does that count?
Well, I broke 3 minutes on the Xbox. I couldn't do it at the track. I did like 301, 302. I wanted to get under 3, but my virtual time was.
There's always hope. There's always hope. So, are you sharing driving the Cobra replica car?
We're sharing.
Is
done
that
a lot of work.
To call it a Cobra replica car? Because that's what it is.
Yes. Yeah. It's a Factory 5 competition car.
Which is sort of the top of the line of the replica cars. As I understand.
Yeah, I've driven it just on a test day. I haven't had it out, but I put some hours in it.
Yeah.
We've been, it's quite a car. Developed, we've had some help. A good friend of ours helped us with the mechanics. Chip Hain is a great guy, and he helped us sort it all. Nick and I are both amateur mechanics, but
aren't we all?
I guess. But he's a pro, and we've done a lot of. It's a fantastic car. That's Nick's third race car. Yeah, he started with the Spec Miata. Well, he started in my Bug-Eye Sprite through driver school, and Danny Collins' private lesson with Danny. And he also dabbled with NASA and raced the Spec Miata for about 8-9 years.
Oh, really?
And then he went into the big stock car, road racing it, and then sold that and bought this about 2 years ago.
Yeah. Well, this is very attractive.
He's always loved the Cobra, and
everybody loves a Cobra.
20 years ago, the clubs wouldn't allow anything but the real deal, but because of
there are no real deals showing up, why not allow?
Yeah, they're multi-million-dollar cars. Yeah. People still race them. Those people have multi-million-dollar budgets, so if something goes wrong,
we'd much rather see some good replicas. There's good replica cars and there's terrible replica cars.
Yeah.
But RMVR has approved quality replica cars like Cobras or Daytona Coupes, because we ain't going to see the real ones at our events. So we might as well see good representations.
There's 2 Daytona Coupes that are running in the club, and those are gorgeous cars. And Nick's always loved the Shelby Mark. And I'm going to drive it one of these days in more than just a test day.
Hope so.
Before I retire, I don't say much. I don't think about retiring from racing. I like how it keeps my mind sharp, all the focus and all the preparation that you have to do.
Right.
I think I was come away a little smarter sometimes from a race weekend, just because of all of the focus and concentration that it takes to get there, have the car prepared, all the other things, and then focus on which facility you're racing.
I think that's an aspect of racing in general, well, any racing, not just vintage racing, that most people who don't race don't have an appreciation for, is how consumptive it is mentally. Yeah, you got to be somewhat physical. Neither one of us are super physical specimens, but you got to be a little bit physical. But most of the energy consumed to go racing is mental energy, preparation, getting the things to the track, being organized, and the mental aspects of being on track. I mean, it's 99% mental when you're on the track, not bravado. And when you're done racing a session, you're exhausted mentally more so, almost as much as physically.
And we're racing 50 and 60-year-old vehicles that need a lot of attention.
Right.
So to keep them going.
Stuff to do.
First goal is to finish a weekend.
Badge of honor is drive your car in the trailer at the end of a weekend. That's a sign of a victory. How was your weekend? I drove it on the trailer. Fantastic. Didn't come in first. I drove the car on the trailer, and it doesn't need anything in the interim. Jenny, we know each other a long time, and I think I know a lot about you. But what no one knows about you that you think it would be something about you that really understands or knows about, or that would surprise people? You're such an open guy. There are no secrets.
I guess I've been thinking more about my family history lately and how uncommon I'm here, how I got here. And my grandmother came through Ellis Island from Greece, and my father's side of the family story is even more incredible. His parents were wooed by mining companies. They sent representatives over to Europe to get workers, and they wanted Europeans because they couldn't speak English, so they couldn't unionize. And so my grandparents, and some other people from the village in Greece where they were from, wound up in Rock Springs, Wyoming in 1915.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Long way from home. Rock Springs is a long way from anything.
Can you imagine that? You go from tropical Greece to Rock Springs, Wyoming in 1915.
There's a system shock.
I'll shorten the story. My grandmother said, the story goes, "I'm going to throw myself in front of a train unless you take me back to Greece." So they were on their way back to Greece, and my dad was born in New Jersey before they got on the boat.
Oh, really?
To go back to Greece. He was raised in Greece. And then fast forward, during World War II, the Nazis occupied Crete, and there was a resistance.
Right.
And my dad and his older sister were American citizens because they were born here. And my grandfather said, "Leave," because they didn't know how it was going to turn out.
So you came from sort of double immigrants.
Yeah. And he wound up in New York City.
Yeah.
And then, I was born in Brooklyn. I'm one of 7 kids.
Wow. Really?
6 older sisters.
Oh my goodness! No wonder you're the way you are.
Yeah,
6 older sisters.
they
You didn't stand a
spoiled me.
chance.
No, probably not. But sometimes I wonder, and I did this similar thing that my dad did, and I left New York because I wanted to be in Colorado. I liked the mountains and I didn't like the city of New York, and I thought it's kind of cruel to leave your folks. But then I thought my dad did the same thing to make his life better.
Sure.
And
Why not?
here I am. Now I have a grandson here, and that's changed our life.
It's a
and I say it's all about family, and my family was pretty important to me. But we go back. I still have a couple of sisters left in New York. Visit and see
anybody in Greece that you're aware of?
Yeah. I have a first cousin that I went and visited, which was remarkable because it wasn't a third or fourth cousin. And when we were making plans, my sister in New York said, "No, you don't need to rent a car." I said, "What about a hotel?" "No, you don't need that." I said, "Well, I just show up with bags and that's it." And they took care of us. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So my heritage is important to me.
Yeah.
The history, and Nick is actually, he studies Greek on Lingo. I never learned the language. The older sisters learned it, and by the time us younger ones didn't.
Yeah, and we're too old to learn a second language at this point.
Well, my dad taught me all the curse words, so
I see.
I know them. But that's
all
about
you
it.
need if you're whatever. All right, getting back to cars. If money were no object, what race car would you like to put your fanny in and take around the circuit?
The BMW, the CSL.
Oh, really?
The lightweight BMW. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Not some fancy McLaren, but that car.
Well, I've always loved the BMW mark. Since high school, I wanted the 2002, and Harry promised me a ride in the McLaren. I'm going to get that before he sells the last one.
Is there, so right now you're racing
the
a car
Lotus.
with a certain pedigree, provenance or pedigree or both. You want to tell us about the Lotus?
Yeah, it's a great story because Danny Collins, everybody that's been in the club for a very long time knows the story, but the shorter version of Danny Collins' story was he was a mailman, postman back in the 50s, and he was into racing, and he saved $5,000, which you could buy a home for back in the day, and he ordered a Ferrari from Luigi Cinetti in New York. And when it showed up in Denver, it was $5,800, and he told me he didn't have the $800 for freight, but his racing buddies loaned him the money.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that
Yes.
story. That's great.
Yeah, there's a great article in Forza magazine. I have a copy of it, and actually Danny signed the cover, telling the story about the postman. Yeah. It was a white Ferrari, it was a 750 Monza.
Wow.
And then he sold it after campaigning it for a couple of years. So he was racing in Steamboat. They had raced back in the 50s.
In the streets.
La Junta, he was racing the Ferrari with SCCA. And SCCA was newly formed then. And he just always, told me great stories about the history. Colorado's got a rich racing history.
Right.
The bizarre part of Larry Miller tried to build the racetrack Miller Motorsports Park here up at Meade. But since the voters turned that down, he went to Utah, which doesn't have the rich racing history like Colorado did.
Right.
So Danny, he sold the car to a doc and kept in touch with him. And if you remember, in '96, the doc shipped the car out here. It was painted red and let Danny race it. It's Steamboat in '96.
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
Well, the last car that Danny bought from a gentleman named Carl Wells in our club, you know Carl, or knew Carl's passed. Right. It was that Europa, and Danny always thought it'd make a great race car. And Carl was selling it, and Danny bought it and converted it to a race car because it was a street car. And he raced it the last couple of years of his life, and then he wanted to sell it. No, when he passed away, the family moved. The estate sold it, and Carl got his hands on it, who was the original owner of the car.
Yeah.
And Carl was a really good friend of ours as well. And when he passed, people said the car was unlucky. No, he's just
apparently not. You're still with it.
That's right. And Carl wanted to sell the car, but he had a caveat: it had to stay in Colorado because it was Danny's car.
Yeah.
And he didn't get it sold. But when he passed away, I was alerted that the family was going to make a great deal on the car because they knew how much it meant to us. And Nick and I purchased the car. And it languished under a pine tree on my property for 7 years.
Oh,
And
really? That long?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then I finally said, I'm going to sell the Sprite because I had retired from my wallpaper business. And, one race car to me was luxury enough, not,
Two of them
yeah.
didn't make any sense.
And
Yeah.
time and space were an issue. So we started to restore the car. And it turns out to be, Nick has said it's the best handling car he's ever driven.
No
He's driven
kidding.
a lot of great cars. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we played up on the John Player Special, which was the sponsor of the actual raced Europas back in the day, and the production cars too, with a decal. We had it made. We called it the Collins Well Special.
Europa will be at the cancer race.
Yes, it's a '72 rear engine car, and it runs in the small bore group. It's a D production 4-cylinder, and it goes.
Well, people come out to spectate. They stop by the pits and take a look at the car because they're unique. They're absolutely unique, and the history on this one's unique. And Jimmy's talking about Danny Collins, and when you come out to High Plains Raceway, we have two things named for Danny. The pavilion is the Danny Collins Pavilion, and then there's one corner on the track which is called Danny's Lesson, and that came about because when the track was being designed, Danny suggested there has to be at least one corner that is a decreasing radius corner just to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so that turn, I don't remember the turn number, but
I failed to
Danny's
mention
Lesson is the decreasing radius corner named after Danny. Danny was quite an institution regionally.
Yes, and he ran Danny Collins Driving School, which I failed to mention.
Right.
And that's why his suggestion of that turn was part of the lesson.
I took lessons from Danny before I started vintage racing, and he was such a legend. It was my understanding, even though he was a family man and a postman, but a very accomplished racer, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And he had invitations to go race professionally in Europe, and opted not to because he was a.
It was Winkleman, right? Offered him. I thought it was Winkleman.
I couldn't have told you. He had offers to go race professionally in Europe. He was that good, but he was a family man and didn't want to get involved in all of that. Stayed here and started teaching people to race. And like you said, a lot of people that have been around RMVR for everybody took lessons from Danny.
Danny's pride and joy was one of his students won the Indianapolis 500.
And that was
Buddy Lazier.
Really?
Yeah. And he told me stories about racing with Bob Lazier, Buddy and Jock's father, at Pueblo.
Right.
And Buddy and Jock were on bicycles. And Bob wanted Danny to take Buddy under his wing, and so to speak, and Indianapolis champion. It's pretty impressive.
He really was. My recollection of Danny teaching was how calm he was in teaching. He didn't get excited. Even if he messed something up, he was just a delight as a teacher, aside from knowing what he was talking about. But he was just a delightful personality. With
the exception of when you got into his Dodge Dakota and went out on the track after something, he was a madman.
Really?
Yeah, people talk about getting a ride in the Dodge Dakota to go pick up a car or something.
I think that must be a genetic thing with people who teach racing. They love to get in production type cars, whether it be a van or a rental car, and put students in there and scare the crap out of them. I think it's an instructor genetic fault.
So the car wears number 12, which was Danny's number. So
cool.
Come see us in the paddock.
Absolutely.
We'll let you sit in the car and you can donate money to the charity.
There you go. Well, we're looking forward to the race this coming September. What is it? I should know the date in my mind.
27th and 8th.
Yeah. And we'd encourage people to come out and spectate. It's an open paddock. All the drivers in the cars are available to be talked to. Most often, if you ask to sit in the race car, you could do that. Bring the kids.
You should mention the ticket to ride. You should mention
yeah, kids, like the kids sit in the race cars and take their pictures and show them to grandma later. It's great stuff. And as Jimmy said, one major feature of the weekend is the so-called ticket to ride. And during the lunch hour on both Saturday and Sunday, we have race cars that have 2 seats and exotic production cars that give rides around the circuit at speed, careful speed, but at speed, and experience what it's like to go around the circuit. It's a 3-lap proposition, and I've seen so many people get out of the car at that and say, that's the greatest thing that I've ever done in my life. And for a donation, you can take a ride in the Ticket to Ride program, and it'll make your day. I can promise you that. So we look forward to seeing people out there this weekend, the weekend of the race, and helping us raise money for Morgan Adams Foundation. As you know, we've been a 15-year relationship with that fine organization, raising money for them, and it's a great cause. They do great work funding pediatric cancer research. So what's not to like? Come out and support the cause, have a good time.
One of my favorite parts of the weekend is I actually physically help put people in the car for their 3-lap journey, which involves knowing how to buckle up the seatbelts. Some of them are an old-fashioned latch type. But the best part is the expressions and to see the excitement. The family members get a break from the heaviness on their hearts.
Right.
They get to go out in a car and experience 3 laps of pure fun and joy. So it's a privilege to be part of this event.
Yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. Nice to chat with you.